Tov, everyone. Welcome. It is Wednesday night. It is 8 p.m. here on the east side of the United States, here in the diaspora, in quarantine, no less. This is the House of Seven Beggars, and therefore this must be the Torah study with Rabbi A and Reb Reuven. Oh, good to have you all here this evening. Let's see who we got here. We have Shoshi, and I assume Shlomo. Kat and David, and Marshall so far. Okay, so as those of you who have been here know that this is our in-depth study of the Torah. We had just finished a couple of weeks ago. We finished the Sefer Bereshit, and we are now on to Shemot. So without further ado, Barak atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu l'sok b'divrei Torah. Okay, so as I said, we are on chapter 2. This is the first parsha of Shemot, parsha Shemot of the Sefer Shemot. And we're going to begin at chapter 2, verse 1. A man went from the house of Levi, and he took a daughter of Levi. Rashi goes on to say here that, and he took a daughter of Levi. He had been separated from her. Now he's talking about Yocheved. He had been separated from her because of a decree of Pharaoh, and he remarried her. This is the implication of the apparently superfluous beginning of the verse, and a man went. That is to say, he followed the advice of his daughter, Miriam, who had said to him, your decree is more severe than that of Pharaoh. If Pharaoh decreed only against the newborn males, you should have decreed against the females as well. And now, in response to his daughter's criticism, he took his wife back. He performed a second marriage ceremony with her. Yocheved, too, was transformed to become like a young woman. She was 130 years old at the time of Moshe's birth, for she was born between the walls, and we did discuss this quite a bit. She was born between the walls on the border of Israel as Israel arrived in Mitzrayim. And again, as the way I interpret it, is that this was born between the walls, meaning that she was born between the time that they left the last fortified city in what would become Eretz Israel, and before they arrived at the first fortified city in Mitzrayim. Now, Israel spent a total of 210 years in Mitzrayim. And when they departed, Moshe was 80 years old. Therefore, when she conceived Moshe, she was 130 years old. And still, the Torah calls her the daughter of Levi. Okay. So, the further commentary on this goes on to say, let me find number 1 here. Well, there's 3. Okay, so we know 2 is there, and 1 has got to be here somewhere. Okay. She followed the advice of his daughter. The further commentary says on this, the verb halech. Let me get back here and get the actual word here. Anyway, has the same meaning is in the Tehillim. Yeah, as it refers to, you should have decreed against the females as well. The further commentary says, by refraining from procreation to prevent the birth of daughters as well as sons. Referring to and performed a second marriage ceremony with her. The further commentary on this one says, it's from Tractate Shota 12, Folio 12a. The verse cannot be referring to the first marriage of Amram, Moshe's father, and Yocheved, Moshe's mother, because the following verse presents the birth of Moshe as the first birth to follow this marriage, whereas Moshe's siblings from the same father and mother, Miriam and Aharon, were both older than he. This verse must therefore be discussing a second marriage. Okay. Referring to, and Yocheved was transformed into a young woman. Further commentary says, Yocheved had already borne children in an advanced age, for she had given birth to Aharon a mere 3 years before she gave birth to Moshe. Therefore, then when Rashi says she became like a young woman, he means that she became youthful in other respects as well. In other words, being able to have children. Continue on. The whole thing about born between the walls. The further commentary says, well, basically it just refers to what Rashi says in Genesis 45:15, which we discussed about the between the walls, the whole thing there. Okay. And as it refers to, and still the Torah calls her a daughter of Levi. The further commentary says, Shemot Rabbah, chapter 1, verse 18, and Tractate Sota, Folio 12a, daughter of Levi is not a term appropriate for an older woman. The woman of Yocheved's age would be referred to by her own name, as she is later in chapter 6, verse 20, not her father's. This verse therefore indicates that despite her age, she was like a young woman. Okay, so we're going to move on now to verse 2. And just see who's... we're expecting a special guest tonight in the chat room. So if he makes an appearance, I hope he's going to actually say something in the chat room if he's here. So we shall see. We shall see. I'm going to leave it as a surprise. Okay. Verse 2. The woman conceived and gave birth to a son. She saw that he was good, and she hid him for 3 months. Okay, so Rashi goes on to say that he was good. That goodness referred to is that when he was born, the entire house became filled with light. And that's all Rashi has to actually say about that. I'm actually surprised that he doesn't actually talk about, for 3 months. Why 3 months, Why did he hide her 3 months, or hide him for 3 months? Well, there's, babies, if they're taken care of, they do not. Yeah, I know, parents. I'm a parent myself. Yes, babies do cry. Okay, but at 3 months, it's not like it's something piercing that other people are going to hear or anything like that. They can be quickly, quieted down by simply picking them up or whatever. So at that point, she was able to actually, keep him, kind of secret from everybody else at that point. There's also a thing, and they're actually going to, I know Rashi is actually going to comment on this, so I'm not going to get too much into this, but the whole thing about the counting of the days and stuff. Okay, so the further commentary on this says that the entire house became filled with light. Okay, so the further commentary says Shemot Rabbah, chapter 1, verse 20, and again, Tractate Sota, folio 12a. The simple phrasing used here is kitov, that he was good, as it was used with reference to the creation of light. And God saw the light, kitov, that it was good, from Bereshit 1:4. The verse is interpreted in this way because it goes without saying that she viewed the child as good in the simplest sense. All mothers view their newborn children as good. According to Mizrahi, the fact that the entire house was filled with light was a sign to Yocheved that her son would be the subject of special divine protection. Relying on this protection, she later placed his basket in the water. Okay. Special guest still has not arrived yet. Okay, so we on to verse 3. She was no longer able to hide him, so she took for him a reed basket and smeared it with clay and tar. She placed the boy into the basket and placed it among the reeds at the bank of the river. Okay, so Rashi's got a lot to say on this, and there is a lot to talk about, a lot to unpack on this. So Rashi goes on to say, and she was no longer able to hide him, for the Egyptians counted her term. From the day Amram took her back, for they assumed she would conceive and, pardon me. For they assumed she would conceive and carry for 9 months. But she gave birth to Moshe after 6 months and 1 day. For a woman whose birth term is 7 months, i.e., her fetus develops sooner than average, may give birth by truncated months, or ahead of schedule. And the Egyptians checked on her to see if she had given birth at the end of 9 months. In other words, because of the decree to kill the males. So the Egyptians were keeping track of, a woman is pregnant, when did she become pregnant, count the days, and then so that nobody's able to hide their children, supposedly able to hide their children, and allow them to live. So the further commentary on, wait a minute, we'll finish up here. The reed, talking about the basket. This is called gemi in the language of the Mishnah. In Old French, I'm not Old French, so it's beyond me. Jonc. Jones. It is a flexible thing and can withstand collision with both that which is soft and that which is hard. Okay. Rashi goes on to say with clay and tar, the tar on the outside and plaster on the inside, so that the Zadik Moshe would not smell the foul odor of tar. Now, I'm not wondering if they're actually going to make a reference of this back to Yosef. Remember when Yosef was sold, that typically the caravans that came through there were actually carrying golbanim, which has a very, very foul odor. But the caravan that Hashem sent to Yosef's brothers, that they would sell him to, was carrying spices. Again, so the Zadik would not have to smell the foul odor. Okay, we'll see if the further commentary picks up on that. Rashi goes on to say, she placed it among the reeds. The word suf means swampland full of thin reeds. Rosel in Old French. A word comparable to it appears in the verse Kane Lasuf Kamelu. Reeds and willows shoots wither. Okay, so further commentary on this one goes on to say, there it is, as far as giving birth by truncated months. This is from Tractate Nida, folio 38b. That is, the 7 months need not be whole ones, for a woman with 7-month term can deliver at any time during the 7th month. Hence why Rashi is actually saying 6 months and 1 day. Well, 6 months, 1 day, doesn't have to be the full month. It's still counted as the 7th month. Okay, going on here. Rashi referring to see if she had given the Egyptians, see if she had given birth at the end of 9 months. The further commentary says, thus there was a 3-month period during which she had no difficulty concealing him, but no more than that. Okay, so there's just a reference to some other part here. As far as the Mishnah, where it talks about the Mishnah, it's actually calling out. This is from Bikurim 3.1 and Tractate Shabbat, folio 78a. Continuing on. Yeah. Okay, where it regards the foul odor of tar. The further commentary says, Shemot Rabbah 121 and Tractate Sota, why do I keep saying Sho? Sota 12, folio 12a. This was unlike Noach's ark, which was tarred both within and without. Rashi adds that Moshe's basket did not need coating of tar inside and out because the waters of the Nile were not stormy, as were the waters of the flood. Okay, and so the reeds, the statement of the verse that says reeds are and willow shoots withered. Rashi goes on to say here, this is from Isaiah, the further commentary, Isaiah 19:6, Rashi to Sota, folio 12b, as opposed to folio 12a, which we have been talking about, explains Agam as swampland of willow shoots and thin reeds. Since the verse from Isaiah already contains the words kana, reeds, the word suf here is translated as willow shoots. Okay. No commentary on 4, so we'll go from 4 into 5. And verse 4, His sister stationed herself at a distance to know what would be done with him. Verse 5, Pharaoh's daughter went down to bathe by the river, and her maidens walked along the river. She saw the basket among the reeds, and she sent her maidservant, and she took it. Okay, so Rashi says, to bathe by the river. This cannot be taken in the literal sense. Therefore, invert the verse and explain it as if it reads, the daughter of Pharaoh went down to the river, went down by the river to bathe in it. Okay. I don't really see a big difference there, but okay. Further commentary on this one cannot be taken in the literal sense. In ancient Egypt, people bathe beor in the river, not al haor hayor, by or alongside the river. The use of the preposition al can only be explained by inverting the word order in the verse. Okay. Okay. So Rashi goes on to say, along the river, this means next to the river, similar to the phrase El Yad in the verse. See the portion of Eov, next to me. It is a term derived from the literal sense of the word hand, for a man's hand is next to him. Okay, so the further commentary on that one, actually it just says both Al-Yad and El-Yad mean close by. The English idiom at hand has the same meaning. Rashi goes on to say, our rabbis expounded that the word holachot in our verse means going, as is an expression of denoting death. As used in the verse, behold, I am going to die. According to the interpretation, the handmaidens of Pharaoh, handmaidens of the daughter of Pharaoh, were going to die because they objected to her regarding saving Moshe. The verse supports the rabbi's interpretation. For what other purpose could it serve us? For the Torah to write, and her handmaidens were going. Okay, so back in the further commentary regarding this is, okay, the handmaidens were going. Oh, it's basically just referring back to Shemot Rabbah and Sota. Okay, her handmaiden, her maid servant. This means her slave woman. The rabbis expound that the word amata means arm. Amata means arm. However, according to the grammar of the Holy Tongue, if this were the meaning, amatam, it should have been spelled amata. Aleph men tav hey, with the mem having a dagesh. Okay, so here we're going to get into the whole sentence structure and stuff like that. A dagesh and the patak instead of the chatat patak. But our rabbis expound that et amata means her arm. And according to their interpretation, her forearm became lengthened by many amot, cubits, to enable her to reach the basket and draw it out of the water. Okay, so as it regards this whole thing, okay, this means, amata means her arm. The word, for the word ama, cubit, or L, refers to a standard length of measure and represents the distance from the elbow to the fingertip. Thus, ama can also mean arm. Further commentary also goes on to say that Rashi does not mean to imply that the rabbis were unfamiliar with Hebrew grammar. Moreover, both interpretations of amata were cited in the Talmud in Tractate Sota, Folio 12b, so Rashi would be expected to use the introductory phrase, our rabbis expound, before the first interpretation, also by stating that amata means her slave woman, without citing the rabbis. Rashi implies that it is the pasat, under simple understanding of the word. The second interpretation is not within the realm of pasat because of the grammatical problem it raises. Therefore, Rashi states that the Rabotai, the Shul, and our rabbis expound to imply that the explanation that follows is in the realm of Darash, Hamalaic exegesis, not Pasat from Mizrahi. Okay, so now I got to find my place again. Okay, so that catches. Almost. Okay, so a measure of length is implied in the use of the uncommon term ama for arm rather than yad, which is usually used with the verb with the root shin lam and chit. Okay. So we are on to verse 6. I just thought if I got this further commentary as we were getting to it, it might actually be a little easier to follow along with it. We'll see. Verse 6. She opened it and saw him, the boy, and behold, the youth was crying. She took pity on him and said, "This is one of the Hebrew boys." Rashi goes on to say, she opened and she saw him. Who was it that she saw? The boy. This is its simple meaning, but its midrashic interpretation is that she saw the Shekhinah, the divine presence, with Moshe. And behold, the youth was crying. His voice was like that of a youth rather than that of a 3-month-old infant. Okay, so the further commentary on this with the divine presence, Shemot Rabbah 121, Tractate Sota, Folio 12b. According to this, meaning the verse reads, and she saw him with the boy. The word make sure I got that right. The word et meaning with. Okay. And behold, the boy was crying. Shemot Rabbah 121 and Tractate Sota Folio 12b. The verse has just referred to Moshe as Yeled, a child, a term which would seem more appropriate. Na'ar denotes an adolescent. An adolescent. Moshe is called a youth, insofar as his voice was like a youth's. Or as Fred Gwynn would say in My Cousin Vinny, youths. In his youth. Okay. No, I guess it was actually Joe Pesci that actually said that. Okay. But so much for trivia. We go on to verse 7. His sister said to Paro's daughter, "Shall I go summon for you a wet nurse from the Hebrew women who will nurse the boy for you?" Rashi goes on to say, from the Hebrew woman, the fact that Miriam specified that she would call a wet nurse from among the Hebrew women teaches that Pharaoh's daughter had taken Moshe around to many Egyptian women to nurse him, but he had not nursed from them, because he was destined to speak with the Shekinah. Okay, so the further commentary on this one, back to it, teaches, although this phrase is omitted in many editions, it is nevertheless implied. The word teaches is actually in parentheses. And as we know, there are a number of editions, the Al-Kabetz edition, and so on and so forth, of Rashi's commentary. It appears in some editions, it does not appear in other editions, but it is implied nonetheless. Okay, and where it regards to the Shekinah, Shemot Rabbah and Sota 12b, Moshe would not nurse from an Egyptian woman because the taste of their non-kosher foods was evident in their milk. Okay, verse 8. The daughter of Pharaoh said, "Go." So the young girl went and summoned the boy's mother. Rashi goes on to say, so the girl went. She went with agility and vigor like a youth, or a youth. The further commentary on this one says, Shemot Rabbah and Sota 12b. The verse could have simply said, V'telech, and she went. The apparently superfluous "the young girl went" indicates that she went in a vigorous manner, because the word alma, young girl, is related to the Aramaic root ayin lamed mem, vigor. Verse 9. Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Take this boy and nurse him for me, and I will give you your pay." So the woman took the boy and nursed him. Rashi goes on to say, "Take." She prophesied, but did not realize what she had prophesied. She was saying, "Here is that which is yours." The further commentary on this one, Shemot Rabbah 121 and Sota 12b, Pharaoh's daughter used the words helichi, convey, rather than the more common term take, as can be understood as a combination of the word hey shelichi Here is that which is yours. Pharaoh's daughter thus unknowingly acknowledged that Moshe belonged to the family of Yocheved. Okay. Still looking for our special guest. David, did I mention you at the beginning? If I didn't, I'm sorry. Donald. Donald has joined us. Okay, so moving on to verse 10. The boy grew up, and she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he was a son to her. She called his name Moshe, as she said, for I drew him from the water. Rashi goes on to say, actually, this is not a very long, this is not a very long comment or verse, but there's a tremendous amount of commentary by Rashi. So Rashi says, drew him. The meaning of the word is as Targum Onkelos renders it, I took him out. The words used by Targum Onkelos, used by the Targum, means taking out in Aramaic, as we find it is used in the Talmudic phrase as one who takes a strand of hair out of milk. But in Hebrew, Shitihu more precisely means I remove him. Like the word word yamus in it shall not be removed. And in Masu, and the ark of Hashem, Hashem's covenant, and Moshe did not move away. This is how Menachem classifies it. Okay, so let's catch up with the further commentary here. Back to shall not remove and Masu in the ark and so on and so forth. Numbers 1444, according to the grammarians who accepted by literal roots, see the notes, so on and so forth, including Menachem ben Saruk on the next note, and the root Mitzitihu is Memshin, the same as the root of Yamus, the Mush, and Mashu, according to the triliteral school, the root of these words is Mem Vav Shin. Okay. But I say that it should not be in the same entry as the word mas and yamus, but rather derived from the root mem shin he, and it means taking out. So this too, yemseni, in he will take me out of many waters. Let's catch up on the further commentary here. According to Menachem, going back to how Menachem classifies it, so Menachem ben Saruk from Spain in the 920 to 980 era compiled Makberet, a dictionary of Hebrew language frequently quoted by Rashi. Evidently not too long before Rashi. Rashi is about 1010. So this doesn't precede him by too much. According to Menachem, the literal meaning of Mesitihu is I remove him, and the Targum's rendering Shehil Te Shehilate, I took him out, is a paraphrase appropriate to the context. According to Rashi, however, the Targum is a literal translation. Okay, so let's move on here. For it should be under the entry of Memshin, as Menachem has it. It would not be possible to say Meshitihu, a form appropriate only to the root Mem Shin He, but rather the verse would have said Hamishotihu. Hamishotihu is a, okay, here we go again, is a causative hifil. Just as Hakim Moti, I establish it, is derived from the root of Mem, and I return it from the root Shin Vet, and I brought it from the root of Vet Aleph. Alternatively, the root Mem Shin would have given rise to Mashtihu, a transitive verb in kal. Okay, as the word umasti in the verse, I will remove the sin of that land, but mesitihu, without the final suffix, can only be in the form of a class of word whose root contains the letter He at the end of the word, such as the roots to take, to build, to do, to command, to turn. When they are expressed in the first person singular past tense, as our verse does with the word Masitihu, the letter Yud comes in place of the He, as in I did, I build, I turn, I command. Okay, and I'm sure you were all really worried about that, so now that we got that cleared up. Okay. I would have really hated to have Rashi as a Hebrew teacher. I really, really would have. Okay. Not that I paid that much attention to my English teacher either. Just saying. Okay, verse 11. Yeah. It happened in those days that Moshe grew up and went out to his brethren and saw their burdens. He saw the Egyptian man strike a Hebrew man of his brethren. Rashi goes on to say here that Moshe grew up. Has the Torah not already written in the preceding verse, the boy grew up? This seems redundant. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Eli said in answer to the question, the first mention of growth is the term of physical stature. The second mention of growth is in terms of attainment of rank. As Paro appointed him over his household, much like Yosef, right? And he saw their burdens. He focused his eyes and heart to be distressed over them. The further commentary on this one says literally the phrase means he saw into their burdens, implying that he looked closely at their plight. Okay, an Egyptian man. An Egyptian was a taskmaster in charge of the Israelite taskmasters, kind of like a general supervisor over a group of supervisors. And he would wake them at the time of the crowing of the rooster and to get them to work. Okay, so the further commentary on this one, the word ish, man, denotes someone in position of authority, as in verse 14 below. Therefore, the use of the apparently superfluous word man, an Egyptian man, and a Hebrew man indicate that both were in positions of authority. Striking a Hebrew man. The Egyptians was lashing him and intimidating him. The Hebrew man was the husband of Shelomis, the daughter of Dibri. Okay, so let's just pause there and go to the additional commentary on this one, which is, actually it just refers to Leviticus. Okay, so we'll go on. The Egyptian man cast his eye upon her, and at night the Egyptian awakened the Hebrew and took him out of his house, and the Egyptian returned and entered the house and had relations with the Hebrew wife. She was thinking that it was her husband. The man returned to his house and sensed what had occurred. When the Egyptian saw that the Hebrew sensed what had occurred, he was striking him and intimidating him throughout the day. So, Rashi goes, or the additional commentary on this one says, Shemot Rabbah 128, the use of the present tense, Makah, hitting, rather than the past tense, hika, hit, indicates that Moshe witnessed the event that took place over a period of time, not just a single blow. Okay, so at this point we are going to take our break, and we will return to find out what happens with Moshe at this point. Henry has joined us. Good to see you, Henry. You're just in time for the break. We will be back in 6, so everybody stay tuned.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
Delicious things to eat.
The popcorn can't be beat. The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy. So let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
It's intermission time, folks, so hurry, hurry, hurry. Step right over to our refreshment center for the most extravagant array of refreshment goodies ever assembled under one roof. Enjoy breathtaking, mouth-watering goodies, everything from a snack to a delicious full meal. At our refreshment center, you'll find a large variety of goodies to satisfy your hunger, your thirst, or your sweet tooth. So hurry, hurry, hurry. Visit our refreshment center now. The show starts in 5 minutes. The show starts in 4 minutes. The show starts in 3 minutes. The show starts in 2 minutes. The show starts in 1 minute. And now, on with the show.
And we are back. Okay. So, yeah, Henry, it's good to have you here. Don't be afraid to come into the chat room. It's a good group of people. They don't bite. Well, they don't bite very hard. Okay, so we are on to verse 12 now. So, Still no sign of our special guest. Unless he just happens to be watching in the background. Because Rabbi Wyckoff was actually said he was going to try and make it to the study tonight. And we hope that he is there. And we want to wish him Yom Halev Sameach, a happy birthday on his birthday today. Just in case he is listening. Okay. So I had a very nice conversation with him earlier, and we discussed maybe we're going to do something together like we did one time before, which worked out very well. It was very, very well done. Okay, so verse 12. He turned this way and that and saw that there was no man, so he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. Rashi goes on to say, he turned this way and that way. Moshe saw that the Egyptian had done what the Egyptian had done to the Hebrew in the house and what he had done to him in the field. Accordingly to the verse's simple meaning, Commissioner is to be taken as it sounds. Okay, so the further commentary on this one, make sure I got the right, okay. Being in the field, okay. So, Moshe saw that there was no one in the vicinity to witness his killing of the Egyptian. As the verse goes on to say, it is obvious that he looked in all directions. If the verse nonetheless states this explicitly, it must be informing us of an additional fact, namely, that Moshe studied the case from all aspects. The Gur Aryel. Alternatively, in his comment to verse 14 below, Rashi says that Moshe killed the Egyptian by promising God's name. He could have done so without fear of detection. When he turned to either side before killing the Egyptian, it must have been for some other reason. Continuing on, the additional commentary, it tells us that Moshe looked in all directions and does not allude to anything else. Okay. And what, going back to Rashi, and saw that there was no man. He saw there was no man. The further commentary on that says, although this phrase is omitted in many editions, it is nevertheless implied. And again, we talked about the Gaal Kabetz edition, so on and so forth. Okay. Saw that there was no man, destined to descend from the Egyptian who would convert. Okay, so what it's actually saying is that he saw there was no man in this man's future that would convert. Okay, so the additional commentary on this says, this is from Shemot Rabbah 128. The verse should have said Adam, person, a term that is gender neutral, including men, women, and children, since Moshe surely was wary of any onlooker. Why, therefore, does it use the term ish, which implies only a man? It uses each to imply an individual of some significance. In this case, a convert. Okay. So we're on verse 13. He went out the next day, and behold, 2 Hebrew men were striving. He said to the wicked one, why do you strike your fellow? Rashi goes on to say, the two Hebrew men. These were Datan, and Aviram. They were the ones who left over some of the manna in violation of God's command. Now we remember this from the wilderness when the manna comes, and there was, they were supposed to collect, but they were, supposed to use it all up that day. If they left anything over, the next day it would become infested and stink. And these are the two who actually kept over the manna to the next day so that it would stink, basically. Okay. So, the further commentary on this one was Datan and Aviram. Targum Yonatan Nidarim. Folio 64b, Scripture refers to Datan and Aviram elsewhere as Anasim, men, from Numbers 16:26. See also there Rashi, so on and so forth there. Okay. Going back to Rashi, Rashi says, striving, this means quarreling. Okay. Why would you strike? Even though he has not hit him, he is called wicked one through the mere raising of the arm with the intent to hit your fellow, the wicked one like yourself. So, referring back to this, back to the quarreling, the further commentary says the root can mean to destroy or to quarrel. In line with Rashi's next comment, that no actual blows were exchanged, Rashi tells us here that Nitzim it can only mean quarreling, not destroying, i.e. fighting. Okay. Back to with the intent to hit, Shemot Rabbah, and Tractate Sanhedrin, folio 58b, since the verse does not say, why have you hit, in the past tense, but uses the future tense, it indicates that one can be considered wicked even if he has not actually hit as yet. Continuing on with still in with the raising of the arm, Shemot Rabbah 129. The word Rea denotes one who has something in common with another, often the bond of friendship. Here were one of the men was about to hit the other, the Torah could not be referring to their friendship. The word must be alluding to something else that the two had in common. So I guess we'll go into 14 and find out what maybe they had in common. Verse 14, he replied, who made you a man, a ruler, and a judge over us? Are you saying that you are going to kill me as you killed the Egyptian? Moshe was frightened, and he thought, indeed, the matter has become known. Rashi goes on to say, who made you a man? You are still a mere lad. Further commentary on this one says, from Tehumah 10, who made you a man over us, rather than who put you over us, derides Moshe by implying that he was not yet fully grown. Why are you saying that you are going to kill me? From here we learn that Moshe killed the Egyptian through uttering God's quintessential, ineffable name. Okay, so the further commentary on this one says, because the question includes the word saying and is not phrased directly, do you want to kill me? Rashi understands the meaning, you are going to kill me by saying the ineffable name. Okay. Moshe was frightened. Moshe's fear is to be understood according to its simple sense. He was afraid of being apprehended and punished for killing the Egyptian. And its midrashic interpretation is that Moshe was afraid because he was worried because he had seen evil men among Israel, informers. He said, now that this is so, perhaps they are not fit to be redeemed. Indeed, the matter has become known. This can be understood as it sounds. Moshe said that his killing the Egyptian had become known, and its midrashic interpretation, Moshe said, the matter that I was puzzled about has been clarified for me. I used to ask, in what did Israel sin more than all the 70 nations of the world? That they should be tyrannized with crushing labor. But now I see that there are informers among them. I see that they are deserving of such punishment. Okay, verse 15. Pharaoh heard about the matter and sought to kill Moshe. So Moshe fled from before Pharaoh and settled in the land of Midian. He sat at the well. Always with the well, right? Every time somebody goes for a wife, they go to the well. So you single guys out there that are looking for your bashert, your meant to be, go to the well, you will find her. Okay. In other words, what is the Torah considered? It's considered a well. Okay. Go to the well, you'll find your bashert. Okay. Verse 15, Rashi goes on to say, Pharaoh heard. Datan and Aviram informed against him. Okay. And he sought to kill Moshe. He handed Moshe over to the executioners to kill him. The further commentary says, since the verse says he sought to kill Moshe rather than he sought Moshe in order to kill him, it implies that Pharaoh had already apprehended Moshe. Going on with Rashi, but the sword had no effect on him. This is the meaning of what Moshe said, and he saved me from the sword of Pharaoh. Okay. And he settled in the land of Midian. Here, Vayeshev means that he spent a considerable amount of time there, as it does in the verse, and Yaakov settled. Okay. The further commentary on this one says that Genesis 37:1, the word Vayeshev appears twice in our verse. Rashi here interprets the first time. In his next comment, Rashi explains that at the end of this verse, the word means, and he sat. Okay, now that we got that cleared up, he sat at the well. Here, Vayeshev is an expression of sitting rather than dwelling, as it meant at the beginning of the verse. Moshe sat at the well because he learned from Yaakov, who met his mate at a well. Okay. 7, 8, okay. Nothing there. So we'll go on to 16. The minister of Midian had 7 daughters. They came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's sheep. Rashi goes on to say here that the minister of Midian had the word Kohen. Here indicates that he had been the foremost among them. Okay, The further commentary on this says that the word Kohen can refer to either a priest or a figure of importance. For example, 2 Samuel 8:18, where David's sons are referred to as Kohanim, even though they belong to the tribe of Yehudah, not Levi. According to Rashi, in this context, it means an important man. Rashi also makes a point in his comment to Genesis 27:22. So he had been foremost among them, but he had disassociated himself from idolatry. The Midianites banned him from dwelling next to them. The troughs. This means channels of running water that were made in the ground. Okay. The further commentary on this one says the word Rechatim is akin to the Aramaic verb rahat, which means to run. It may denote a channel of running water, as we have translated Rashi's comment. The word mirutzot, used by Rashi, is derived from the Hebrew verb ratz, to run. Of course, I'm sure we're all curious about that. That's the end of Rashi's commentary on there. We go to verse 17. The shepherds came and drove them away, meaning his daughters. Shepherds came and drove them away. Moshe got up and saved them and watered their sheep. Rashi goes on to say, and they drove them away because of the ban against associating with Yitro. Yitro or Het or whatever you want to call him. He's got 5 different names he's actually called. I believe it's 5 different names that he is referred to in the Torah. So in this case, we're talking about Yitro. Okay. So, no commentary on 18, no commentary on 19, so we'll go right into 20. 18, they came to Reuel, their father. Again, Yitro is known also as Reuel. He said, "How could you come so quickly today?" 19, now they replied, "An Egyptian man saved us from the shepherds, and he even drew water for us and watered the sheep." Verse 20, he said to his daughters, "Then where is he? Why is it that you left the man? Summon him and let him eat bread." Rashi goes on to say, why is it that you left him? Yitro was upset, or Reuel in this case, was upset that they had left the man who had helped them, because he recognized that he was of the seed of Yaakov. From the waters of the well rose towards him, as they did for Yaakov. And let him eat bread. Well, let's go back here to the waters rose as they did for Yaakov. Again, remembering back when Yaakov came into Mitzrayim, what happened in Mitzrayim? The plague, or the famine, stopped. It ended. And the Nile rose to water the land once again. And that's actually the same blessing that Yaakov gave to Pharaoh. May the waters rise up to meet you. Okay, so the further commentary on this one says that not a whole lot. Shemot Rabbah, Sitakim Yonanan ben Uziel, to Genesis. Okay, so you got my extra commentary on there. Okay. And let him eat bread. Now, Yitro's use of the word bread implies Perhaps he will marry one of you, as you say regarding the verse, but for the bread which he would eat. Now, let's take this and look at this a little more. Yitro's use of the word, perhaps he will marry one of you. Now, we know from the previous verse that Rashi talks about that, or previous statement that Rashi talks about, that Yitro already knew that he was from the seed of Yaakov, because of the waters rising up to meet him. And he knows, if he knows Yaakov, he knows how Yaakov met his wife at the well. Hence, Moshe is at the well. Must be looking for a wife. So maybe he will marry one of you. Okay. Perhaps he will marry one of you, as you say regarding the verse, but for the bread which he would eat. Okay, so the additional commentary on that, from Genesis 39:6, Rashi there points out that in context, bread connotes wife. This interpretation of the phrase explains the association at the end of the verse to the next one. And Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah, which means bird, to Moshe. If this verse says that Yitro wanted Moshe to marry one of his daughters, the next verse would follow naturally in sequence. If it merely says that Yitro invited Moshe for a meal, the next verse is apparently disjointed manner. Okay. Now that we got that all cleared up, verse 21. Moshe agreed to dwell with the man, and he gave his daughter Zipporah to Moshe. Okay, so Rashi goes on to say here that, and he agreed. This translation is as Targum Onkelos renders it. Some editions do not read Kitargumo, but Kimash Ma'o, as it sounds. Similar to it are Hoel na Valin, if I can get my mouth to work right, and the word Hoel, in the praise, please consent to spend the night, which actually comes from Judges. Okay. And we only consented. I skipped something here. No. In the phrase, okay, he had only consented, and in the phrase, I wish to speak, its midrashic interpretation understands it as an expression of an oath. According to this interpretation, Moshe swore to Yitro that he would not move from Midian unless he had his permission. Okay, so no commentary on 22, which I find a little odd, but there is none. Verse 22, so we'll go from 22 into 23. She gave birth to a son and named him Gershom. For he said, I have been a stranger in a foreign land. 23, and it happened during those many days that the king of Mitzrayim died. And the children of Israel groaned because of the work, and they cried out. Their outcry because of the work went up to God. Okay, Rashi goes on to say here, it happened during those many days that Moshe was dwelling in Midian, that the king of Mitzrayim died. Now remember last week I went into a lot of detail and I beat this thing like a dead horse, right? You're probably all sick of hearing it. We keep seeing this thing being interchanged. When we first start out in the Sefer Shemot, we hear him referred to as a king. As a king, king of Egypt, king of this, king of that, yada, yada, yada. The king did this, the king did that, the king said so on and so forth. And prior to that, in Bereshit, in no place was he actually referred to as a king. He's always Pharaoh, Pharaoh, Pharaoh this, Pharaoh that. Pharaoh did this, Pharaoh did that. Pharaoh said this, Pharaoh said that. Okay? Not king. And it isn't until we get into the Sefer Shemot we see him referred to as king many times, and then all of a sudden it starts King Pharaoh, King Pharaoh, King Pharaoh. And I explained that whole thing about, my thoughts of what that is. He's a foreign ruler. He's a Hyksos. That Moshe was dwelling in Midian, that the king of Egypt died, and Israel was in need of salvation. And Moshe was grazing, etc. Okay, the narrative, this is the additional the initial, if I could actually get my mouth to work right, this is the additional commentary. The narrative up to this point has been dealing with the events of the life of Moshe, which deal with the travails of Israel in Mitzrayim, appear to interrupt the narrative, but then again continues with Moshe's experiences from verse 3.1 on. Rashi explains this mention of the affliction suffered by Israel is in place here, for it serves as an introduction to the revelation at the burning bush, which is the next episode in the life of Moshe. Okay. Kind of a teaser, if you will. A preview of coming events. Okay, so, and Moshe was grazing and so on and so forth, and Israel's salvation came about through him. Therefore, these passages are juxtaposed, as we just read why. Okay, that king of Mitzrayim died. He was stricken with Zarat. And to cure himself, he would slaughter infants of Israel and bathe in their blood. Remember, every one of the plagues on Mitzrayim was in answer to something that Mitzrayim had done to the Egyptians, or was a retribution against those gods that the Egyptians had worshipped. So, and again, and I talk about this every year, pay attention as we're going forward, because Pesach is coming, and when it comes to the time to tell the narrative of the Exodus from Mitzrayim, put down the Haggadah and tell the story, because that's what the Torah says. It says to tell the story. It doesn't say to read the story. It doesn't say to drone on through the story. It says tell the story. So tell the story and make it interesting. Okay. Okay, so as it refers to bathe in their blood, the additional commentary says, this is from Targum Yochanan, Shemot Rabbah 134, since Israel's mourning and crying followed the death of Paro, we seem to have a cause and effect relationship between the two events. This would not have been the case if the death of Paro was meant to be taken literally, for then Israel would have rejoiced. Of course. The Gaon of Vilna. Now, it's too bad Reb Reuven isn't with us, because you know how much he loves the Gaon of Vilna. We have many discussions about the Gaon of Vilna and the Baal Shem Tov and Hasidus and Misnagdim and so on and so forth. Okay. So, the Gaon of Vilna suggests another reason for Rashi's comment. After a king's death, Scripture refers to him only by his name, without the title king. If the Torah here says king of Mizraim, it must mean that he did not in fact die, or did not in fact die in the literal sense of die. Okay. Yeah, we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and finish chapter 2. Seem to be on a roll now. I'm sure that will come to a quick end. Okay. So, verse 24. God heard their mourning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Yitzhak, and with Yaakov. God saw the children of Israel, and God knew. Okay. Rashi goes on to say here, their moanings, this means their wail. Really? The additional commentary on this says, this is from Job, the Midrash, or Job. The Midrash cites this verse, which continues, V'nefesh halalim ema tashave'ah. And the soul of the slain cries out, to show that our verse speaks of the cries of the slain children mentioned in Rashi's previous comment. However, it is not clear whether this is what Rashi had in mind here. And since Rashi is no longer around to ask him, then we're just going to have to take their word for it or figure it out for ourselves. Of course, when Mashiach comes, we'll know. Okay. Going back to Rashi, his covenant with Avraham. The word et here indicates his covenant, im, Avrahamim, with Avraham. Okay. The additional commentary on this one says that the word et usually precedes a direct object. If the et which precedes the word Avraham in our verse were to be understood in the sense, the verse would be saying he remembered his covenant Avraham, which would be meaningless. Thus, the Avraham, et Avraham is to be understood as with Avraham. See Rashi, Genesis 1:4, and so on and so forth. Targum Onkelos above for another example of et interpreted as with. And the last verse of the chapter, 25, God saw the children of Israel, and God knew. Rashi, very, very briefly, what Rashi has to say here. And God knew. He focused upon them. He did not hide his eyes from them. The additional commentary says, if this phrase is understood in its literal sense, it would be saying that God discovered something of which he was previously unaware. This cannot be the Torah's intent, for he is omniscient. Okay, he knows everything. So he obviously knew. So that's why Rashi is saying that he focused his attention on them. Okay, so that's going to conclude our study. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Okay, so don't forget that on Friday night at 8 p.m. Is our Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service. I believe we check. I believe we started Rosh Chodesh tonight. Yes, we do. Don't forget when you daven Ma'ariv tonight that it is to add the blessings for the new month. Then again, Kabbalat and Ma'ariv Shabbat service Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then Shachrit and Musaf for Parashat Vayikra at 10 a.m. On Shabbat morning. And don't forget, of course, Zeta Story Corner on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern. Okay, I want to thank everybody for being here. Oh, we have a it's a R3QV13M. Okay, I don't know what that means. It must mean something, but we're glad to have you here. Good to have you. Anyway, come back often. You too, Henry. Come back often. Okay, so, and anybody else who's watching in the background and doesn't want to get into the chat room, that's fine. Glad to have you here. Come back often. Okay, so until the next time that we are together, we will simply say, Laila Tov.